Yo peep this, you just clicked on let's view it, and I'm the man of the channel, Tyrone Cross, and I love to react to videos. What can I say? If y'all rode with me before, then of course, welcome back. And to all my new riders, I advise you buckle up, cause it's gonna be a wild ride. I hope all you guys are healthy right now. I'm fighting a little cold, so if my eyes start looking a little bit glossy, or if I start tearing up, it's not because I'm sad. It's because I'm slowly dying. So as you guys know, my channel's mainly just a bunch of laughing and sarcasm and nothing too serious. Just something to, lighten the mood and bring some positivity in your life. But every once in a while when we go on our trips, I take a junction and get into something a little bit deeper. So that's what I'm gonna do today. But of course, with my own flair, I'm gonna react to a Jubilee video titled Trans versus Conservative Women. So basically we're gonna have a debate with two sides of women, trans and conservative. So this gotta be entertaining. And if it's not, I'll try to make it be. So you already know, let's view it.
Step forward if you agree. The transgender movement is indoctrinating our youth.
We are seeing, especially on social media, on TikTok, you're seeing a lot of people in this community really just targeting children, and you're seeing drag shows, even in conservative states like Texas, and even just media, movies, like it seems like everything seems to be targeted at these kids. You have drag story hour for kids, and it's just really, I think, predatory in a way. And I'm not saying every trans person is doing this, but as a whole, there does seem to be a route that they're taking to get to the kids.
And when you hear Blue's Clues playing in the next room, and then you hear the Gay Parade song, it's Blue's Clues, you're not expecting to be talking to the children about that. Yeah. It really makes you wonder, are they really coming for the children?
And I think we see in our population now the rate of young children who are identifying as transgender, non-binary is skyrocketing. And I think there's something to be said for people who are truly experiencing gender dysphoria, which we recognize exists, and those who are experiencing what is now going to be called, or in the future going to be called, this social contagion gender dysphoria, where they're being exposed to it on social media or in school, or mom and dad are having a conversation about it with children, and children are now starting to develop gender confusion.
Or even babies, right? People who are being born, they don't have to put the gender on the birth certificate, and they're saying you can choose whatever you want to be. Like, that's so dangerous. And even lying to them, saying like, oh, if we put you on hormone blockers at this age, it won't do anything to your puberty, it won't affect you long term. And it's just a straight up lie. And there's like an entire Reddit thread dedicated to people who've transitioned, talking about how much they hate their life now because they transitioned as a child and now they amputated off healthy body parts and are miserable.
Of course, anytime they put something in a cartoon, is to indoctrinate children. They're hoping that you put your kid in front of this show so that you can buy 15 minutes to go do the dishes. And while you're doing that, they're telling your kids all kinds of crazy stuff, whether it's directly or subliminal.
Can the disagreeer step forward?
Oh, this gotta be good.
The fact that the trans movement has got people shook has me so excited. The trans movement is not indoctrinating our youth. Our youth are understanding who they are at a younger age. And from what I was hearing over here is a lot of what y'all were saying, I wonder would you say it to the parents? Because we need to really look at what the parents of trans youth really go through. Trans youth, instead of them enjoying their life, playing with their friends, they're up in legislation trying to fight for basic rights here. 1 in 5 transgender youth have tried to commit suicide. Why are we trying to police them?
In general, kids these days commit more suicide than when I went to school. Again, I'm an 80s baby. We had sayings like sticks and stones will break my bones, but words will never hurt me. I'm rubber, you're glue. What you say to me bounces off of me and sticks to you. It wasn't this anti-bullying campaign, and no, it doesn't mean that bullying was accepted, but we were taught that they didn't run our lives and our feelings. Well, not me, because I wasn't bullied. I'm too cool for that.
But you're bringing it only to the parents. The question was indoctrination in general, am I correct? And then
But they're a part of that conversation. Someone said something about drag shows coming to schools or whatnot. The kids enjoyed it. The parents just had a problem with it. But that's their issue. It's only someone dressed in drag reading a story.
Well, let me speak on the behalf of some boys. We would have loved to seen some half-naked girls read us some stories. And actually, one time, I ran for school president and I pushed to get some burlesque dancers to read us some stories. And for some reason, it was against the policies or something. I don't get it. They were saying the parents would say it's too sexually explicit, but really, that's the parents' problem. You know what I mean?
I have to agree with you guys. I do not like the drag queen social hours. I personally, as a trans person, didn't ever go to a drag show until I was about 40. I'm not for the sexualization of kids. Why are we not letting kids be kids and bringing sex into their lives so early?
I think it's predatory in general to talk about sex with children.
Yeah.
Straight sex, any kind of sex.
Who's teaching sex to third grade children? I really want to know.
Have you looked at the California curriculum for sex education? You need to.
When we think of youth in general, they're having sex at a lot younger age, whether we like it or not. Let's just keep it 100% real.
you don't think it's because of that?
I do not think it's because of that. It starts at home with parents teaching their children, because one or two things is going to happen. Either you teach your children or the world is going to teach your kids. That's the reality of it.
They are learning about it at younger ages from some adult or even their peers who learned about it from adults. That is, in definition, indoctrination.
I'm not sure how both sides missed this, but the reason why they're having sex so early is also because of the damn internet. We didn't have the internet. We had fucking magazines with still pictures. How's that gonna teach me how to hit it, flip it, and twist it? And if you did want to see some live motion action, you had to have a homie that knew where the parents hid the VHS. Actually, I take all that back because I don't even know if that's even statistically true. People have been having sex young for a very long time, but I can see why we would think that it's worse. But if we're gonna let them go to drag shows, it's definitely gonna get worse.
For it.
No, you are shook at the fact that the trans movement has become what it is.
And a movement that influences people all
powerful-
over the world, and particularly children. And we see it in the fact that the number of young people identifying as transgender, non-binary, gender fluid, genderqueer is skyrocketing, which means that children are being exposed to these ideas. And it's certainly coming from institutions like the media, like Hollywood, like our public institutions and schools. So to say that that is not happening, or to deny that that is the reality, negates the numbers that we're seeing.
Facts. Kids mimic what they're shown. How do you think trends start? How do you think slang starts? How do you think racism starts? So to sit there and act like you can't influence these kids to dye their hair purple and call themselves non-binary is ridiculous.
Do you think that children should be able to transition medically?
No.
I think
No.
it just really depends on each individual situation. They should be able to make the best medical decision for them.
I've said this before and I'll say it again. If you gotta be 18 to get a tattoo, why can you be a minor and chop your tits or ding dong off? Comment below.
I'm comfortable sharing bathrooms with the other side.
What I think the bathroom issue opens up is an issue of predatory men taking advantage of the opening. That now they could walk into a women's bathroom or a women's locker room, as we've seen happen in instances like here in Los Angeles at We Spa. And they go into a women's space, they expose themselves to the women, and then they say, well, I'm a trans woman and you've opened up this space for me.
But we cannot blame trans people for that. And
Nobody's blaming you.
That's the problem.
Before I even let her go into her not good point, let me just say this and let's go back to the kids. I have a daughter. You think I'm gonna let my daughter go into a woman's bathroom where I know a grown ass man walked into it just because he said he's a female?
Because again, when you walk into the bathroom, I'm not interested in knowing what you are, what you identify as. I'm trying to use the bathroom and leave out of there. What people have tried to
Told you it wasn't a good point. She doesn't care what you are, so why should it matter?
say is that when trans women go into the bathrooms, they're being predatory, and that is not the case. That is something we do not blame on trans women.
That's not
Although
what
you
they
were not
said.
saying that, when we talk about predatory behavior and when we talk about like the predatory cases, none of them have been trans women.
That's a lie. There's been many cases of trans women, men, basically raping girls in bathrooms. It's happened in high school. and out of high school. So that's a lie.
Now, I want to ask you, is your comfort as far as going to the bathroom more important than the female women that will be victimized by this?
Who said female women will be victimized by this?
They will and they have.
No, you're only assuming, but the reality of it is, again,
It's already happened. First of all, how ignorant do you have to be to believe there's any group or subsection of a group that does nothing predatory? I don't care if you're black, Chinese, white, small, tall, fat, dumb, smart. Someone from every type of walk of life has done something predatory. Get out of here with that.
But you didn't answer the question. Is your comfort more important than the female people who could be victimized by this?
Okay, so
you're asking this question as if I would not stand up for cis women that were in the restroom, and that's not the case. Nice dodge there. But
What is she talking about? What is she talking about? She never said anything about cis women. This lady's doing no favors for the trans community at all. She just sounds stupid.
yeah, her concern is the possibility of predation, and that's still a probability. It doesn't matter if trans people are using the restroom or not. Sure. But what you're concerned about is that you're possibly that people feel more emboldened to put on women's clothes and go into the bathroom, but they're still violating the law all over the place if that's the purpose that they're going in for.
In my opinion, there's an easy fix. Instead of putting men and women or boy and girl in the bathroom, put penis and vagina. Whatever one you have, that's the one you go into. End of story. What are you gonna say? My penis identifies as a vagina?
But I don't agree with the whole transgender ideology. And so for me, it's encouraging something that is based in what I feel is delusion. And so I don't think that we should be encouraging that by allowing men into women's restrooms.
I think that if that's the case, that to some extent all gender is delusion. If we're looking at historically anywhere from, midwives after the enclosure of the commons in the 1400s, having their whole trade affected, or Brewsters having their trade affected, and now we don't think of women as, Brewsters, or that creating beer is a womanly thing. These all came from social conditions. These all came, a lot of gender, regardless of biological sex, it didn't naturally flow out of our genitals and it was we're this is how my genitals are, so this is how my gender is gonna be. That didn't happen. That's not life.
She makes no sense. In one breath, she's saying society is the one who said women act this way and that way and this way, and that's what makes a woman. It seems like she doesn't understand that we don't care what activities a woman is doing. That's not what makes her a woman. It doesn't matter if she's cleaning. It doesn't matter if she built a goddamn castle. She's still a woman.
And trans people are not a delusion. Let's make it very clear. We're here. We've been here for ages. We've been here since the beginning of time. We're in your history books. And I think it's very disingenuous to say that a whole identity is a delusion.
We clearly see you exist. They play all these word games. We know you exist and we acknowledge that you think you're a girl. The delusion is that you're not one though. But you're still sitting there. It doesn't make you disappear into thin air because you're wrong.
I'm saying there is an objective truth, and I don't believe in his truth, her truth, their truth, my truth. There is truth, and
Who defined that truth?
And it's already defined. And as a Christian, I believe God is the one who set truth.
But who defined that?
Is the truth.
Can you tell me who defined that?
God. And the whole fact that they're trying to transition into a female in the first place shows that they aren't actually that, or else there would be no need to transition, right? So you say, okay, I feel like a woman. What is that? What does that feel like?
Yeah, how does it?
And how do you know?
I'm not saying I feel like a woman. I am a woman.
So then why did you transition? Why can't you just present as a man but be a woman?
I transitioned so I could be who I was. I did not feel like I was the person that I identified with when I was born. So I took the steps to align my outside body with how I feel on the inside. What makes you stand up every day and make you identify as a woman? Let me challenge you on that.
I am a woman, and I don't like being called a cis woman because I'm not a cis woman. I'm a woman. I'm not a birthing person. I'm a mother.
So get mad at the terminology, not at trans people.
It's your new terminology.
But this is what I notice a lot of cis women do. The terminology has been around for so long. Cis is a prefix. Cis means same.
So cis means same. So they're saying she's a same woman?
That makes no sense.
Or are they saying she's a cisgender woman? So that'd be a same gender woman?
That makes no sense. They never make any sense.
When are they just gonna admit?
They make no sense.
Trans and non-binary people just want you to respect their chosen pronoun. We are not trying to force pronouns on you.
We're trying to get you to respect them. We're not trying to force them on you. So what qualifies for the respect? To have to use them, right? God damn.
The ability to give birth is a woman's greatest strength. Can the disagreeer step forward?
I already knew they all would agree with that, because why would a woman say my greatest strength is having a baby? So the day you can't have a baby, or if you can't have a baby, you're now going to say you lost your greatest strength? No, of course not. Your greatest strength is still to give love and nurture and support, of course.
While giving birth is not a woman's greatest strength, I do think that only biological women are capable of going through that process and bringing life into the world.
I need to push back on that because we're also forgetting that trans men and trans masculine people can also give birth as well. And I don't think it's fair to...
What? A trans man? That means it was a biological woman. This stupid idiot always has something to say. She'll literally never agree with anything that's going to contradict the fact that they aren't real women. A trans man. Get the...
I recognize that there are people who have different identities. There are biological women who identify as men and then go on to give birth. I would argue, however, that those people are still biological women. And I know that is something that can offend many, but that stands as my belief.
So the correct term is actually cisgendered woman. Cis means same. It means that you identify with the birth that you were assigned. And so, you know, I just really, really wish that we would kind of be a little bit more mutable to the terminology, because I think that's what really is going to open up that dialogue and that discussion.
If you get rid of the terminology, what discussion are we having? I don't know how people keep doing these type of videos. I might just lose my mind.
Are trans women women? And I think if we don't agree there, it's going to be very difficult to kind of keep the conversation going or even agree on the points that you guys are talking about, because if we don't believe that trans women are women, then the conversation kind of ends there in terms of whether they're like men can give birth or not.
But at the same time, you can't even get a trans to say what a woman is. So how do you agree that somebody is something that you don't know what it is?
I'm not sure that's the case. I feel like the ability to give birth is not like the end all be all of a woman's like meaning and life and herself and her personality. And I think that if you can acknowledge that, I would also then maybe challenge the idea that womanhood, as opposed to like a female sex, like womanhood is a consistent thing that has always been one way.
So she didn't listen to any of them, right? Because they all said that is not their greatest power. So what is she disagreeing with? Also, yes, giving birth is not womanhood, it's motherhood. And guess who gets motherhood? Women.
Womanhood, to me, is about standing in integrity. It is about being confident in who you are. And me as a Black...
She just said womanhood is standing in integrity and having confidence in who you are. So are those things that manhood have as well? Is that some things that kids should have? Is that some things that old people should have? Is that some things that Black people should have? Is that some things that white people should have? Isn't that what every person should have? So how is that what womanhood is? That is what being a person is. You should always have integrity in yourself and confidence in who you are, no matter who you are. Damn.
But the reality is we get so stuck on parts. Having A vagina is not the only thing that makes you a woman. I'm sorry.
They never said that either.
Okay, so if I were a white person and I said blackness is about integrity and courage and kind of the same thing that you used to define womanhood, and then I said I want to transition into a black person and I'm white. And I'm redefining what blackness is to fit what I view it as, right? There's no objective reality of what blackness is. Would you consider that appropriation, or do you think that's something I should be allowed to do?
I consider that dodging, and I consider that comparing apples to oranges, because race and gender identity are two separate different things. Because when we look at race, we have to look at many, many different structures of what whiteness and white supremacy looks like and how white supremacy can be manipulated into other things. And what happens is the close
Blah, 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 blah.
Yes, it's apples and oranges because race and gender are two different things. But that wasn't her point. Her point was the mentality and the state of mind of saying and believing on the inside you're something when on the outside you're really not that. But of course, she wants to play stupid and start babbling on about some other stuff that had nothing to do with anything. Even if this world never had any racism in it at all, a white person still couldn't be a black person because they're not a black person. It's just that simple.
All right, I'm going to bring up a little point here because you talked about the binary side of gender. Well, I was born a little both. So I was intersexed, and there's a lot of reasons that happens, none of which are well studied or understood, but a friend of mine in the pediatric trauma world says about 1 in 150 kids come out with some degree of ambiguity in their gender. I wish the world were truly sexually binary. It would make it so much easier. But there is a little bit of a smear. And, you know, as a trans person, I'm a very conservative trans person.
So his point he wanted to make is that 1 out of 150 people might be a little bit mixed up in their chromosomes. Isn't that like 0.05% or something like that? It's not even 1%. His point is that not even 1% of the people in the world do come up a little bit messed up for whatever reason. So this is a real discussion. You guys know I like to use analogies. That's like saying since 1% of the population owns most of the world's money, we should start acting like everyone owns the world's money. I'm sure that's gonna start right away.
Trans women should be allowed to compete in women's sports.
You already knew her dumb ass would come strutting out like that, all cocky and shit. And you know she's gonna say yes. And of course the answer is no.
I do think that trans women have every right to compete in women's sports. When trans women are on hormones, the hormones break their body down. Having gender affirming surgery breaks down the body. And so I think we really need to be educated before we jump to a conclusion that trans women are stronger than cis women in sports. Hi, everybody.
I find it interesting that you assume the people who disagree with you are uneducated, and I will speak out against that. I think the research shows that trans women do happen to have a biological advantage against biological women. Even though you are taking hormones, and that does start to change your body and level things out, we're talking about primarily people who have transitioned post-puberty, which means they do have male bone density, male.
And let me just add, these sports allow these trans females to have a higher level of testosterone than biological women athletes because they are not capable of bringing it down low enough. They basically give them a margin of advantage they're allowed to have.
Span, male hand size, feet size, lung capacity, all of these things are going against women, biological women, when trans women start to enter their spaces, their sports, and compete against them. And this is really concerning for me.
I think for me, it's not a question of whether or not trans women can compete in sports. It's a question of how can we change the institution of sports in this country to make it equitable and to create more opportunity for cis women, for trans women. And like that's kind of like why I wanted to actually ask you all, like, what has your relationship to sports been?
First of all, biological women have been busting their ass for years to get their sports to where they are now. And they're still making progress to this day. So why F that up? As far as transgender sports go, they'll never be successful because the only support you're really going to get is from other transgenders and your loved ones. Sure, the sports books might open up on y'all and people might place their bets if there's a transgender NBA league or something. But let's face reality, men watch more sports than women, and men don't want to see a bunch of men turn themselves into girls and then go play sports. And on the other hand, a woman transitioning to a male, well, she won't be able to compete with biological males anyways.
I don't think you have to have a direct relationship to sports to realize that women are being affected by this issue, and I do reject the idea of equity. There is no way to come about an equality of outcome, which is what equity is saying. There's a reason that women's sports are less funded and less watched than men's sports. It's because men seem to excel athletically, and they seem to press the bounds of athleticism way farther than women do.
I just want to ask a question. For what you were saying, can you throw out some statistics?
Let's keep it real. This big old black trans girl, if she was to be honest for 10 seconds, will admit that she can beat up 90% of the biological women in this world. But she ain't no UFC fighter. The fact that the trans community is willing to lie so much just to get their ways to have everyone accept what they think is real, it shows this is not about growth or acceptance or good amongst people in general. It's just not.
In sports, as we're watching them, Leah Thomas is a great example.
So if you can't throw out the statistics, we're not doing enough of the work.
She hasn't thrown out a statistic all day, but she keeps blabbing in her damn mouth. All she got to do is bust out her cell phone and Google something. There's literally been mediocre male athletes, sprinters, swimmers, whatever the case, that have gone from mediocre to number one. In their high schools, of course not in the Olympics or something, but in their high schools or college.
Let's also be clear. There are some cisgender women who produce high levels of testosterone as well.
Can you produce statistics about the bone density of biological men and how it changes upon being on hormones and whether or not it levels out to biological women?
Can't.
I actually cannot, because when I would think of those statistics, I would think it was BS, to be quite honest with you, because
So according to her, when she saw the statistics, they weren't true enough. So that's why she don't know them. It sounds like you're just playing games.
the reality of it is we could talk about statistics and the research all day long, but it's about experience.
First she said it's about statistics, and now it's about experience. Why? Because the statistics ain't working for her. Wait till the experience don't work either.
And just perceiving and assuming just because I look a certain way, that's not fair. Me and her we could look completely different or whatever, but she may be stronger than me.
I agree.
When I look at Shaquille O'Neal, I think he could dunk on me.
She have much more agility and vitality than I do. We don't know that until you actually do it.
I'm saying it has been studied, it's been done.
And it's been done. We've seen it
But it's an
numerous
assumption.
time and time again.
But we're only going on assumption at this point. Because again,
it's not assumption when we see it. Maybe it's the news cycle that I watch, but I see it a lot. I see it quite often where they're showing trans women beating. I mean, I'm by far.
And you don't see women
Biological
dominating in the men's sports, right? You don't see trans men going into men's sport and just completely dominating and wiping the field with them. This is what happens when you, in my opinion, twist God's design. And when you go against God's design, you create these problems that you wouldn't have if you weren't going against what God intended.
I'm going to take her side a little bit on that. And let me say one more thing, and I'm supporting you on this one.
Look, let's keep it 100. To all of us that know God is real, you can't bring up the God argument to these people. It will never work. They don't care about it because in their eyes, if they do believe in God, they want God to accept them. And if they don't want that, then they don't want no God. So there's no way to win by bringing up God. That's an interesting fact though, isn't it?
The whole idea of messing with what, God puts up, God put me up, okay, if you want to take that. And I had this conversation with a very religious man in San Diego, and he was like, oh, I don't quite know how to deal with that.
And God made you that way, but he didn't make a lot of the people transitioning.
I understand.
but
God made everybody, the murderers, the molesters. It doesn't mean they're right. So again, Another dumb point. Congratulations, you guys are on a record for breaking the most dumb points I've ever heard.
God still blesses me as a trans woman. God blesses you as a cisgendered woman. God
is there for you and still listening and still giving you the opportunity to make yourself right in his eyes as a trans woman. Just like he's doing for all of us. But there will come a time when you are too late. You got to understand, everyone's inner demons and temptations aren't the same. It doesn't mean you get to do them. Pedophiles like kids. Do they get to just say God made me like kids and diddle kids? No, of course not. And God didn't do that anyways. Have you ever thought of all the stuff that's in our food? Have you ever thought of all the vaccines we take? Have you ever thought of all the Tylenols you have taken? Do you really think none of this stuff does anything to us? Really? And then taking the fact that they're putting it in the media, which is controlled by the devil, of course, and now there is a rise in transgenders.
is embodied in me as a trans person. I don't think it's fair, again, when we judge people's personal relationship with God. Gender identity, sexual orientation, none of that matters to a God that loves all.
Just because God loves all doesn't mean he's accepting all. Haven't you ever been in a situation or know someone in a situation where you love someone or they love someone, but they still have to kick them out of their lives? Wake up, people.
Gender dysphoria is real.
I think it is obviously real because many people experience it, but like any kind of dysphoria, whether it's someone who thinks they're overweight or anything, I think it should be treated as not reality. Like if I thought I was obese, I wouldn't want to go to a affirming therapist to tell me, yes, you are obese and you should, get skinnier.
Well, I had the opportunity of working on the DSM-4, I think it was, when we...
The DSM-4 is a bunch of BS anyways. Do you know if you read that thing, anybody has a mental illness in the whole world? Literally, they list everything as a mental illness. But what I'm going to say is I do think that people deal with gender dysphoria, but it doesn't mean there ain't a whole lot of people just jumping on the bandwagon with the trend. Anyone that knows anything about TikTok, there are people that will fake disorders for views. So if they'll do that, why wouldn't a person fake being transgender or having gender dysphoria?
We actually declassified transgender dysphoria from a mental illness to a condition.
See, transgender was in the DSM as a mental disorder.
And a lot of us commit suicide because of gender dysphoria. And so it hits our community a lot harder.
She said gender dysphoria hits our community harder. And I'm thinking she means our community by Black community, right? Again, look at the media. Lil Nas X, he's Black. Look at the remakes of all these fairy tale movies, the Cinderellas. The fairy godmother is a transgender Black man. There's also another movie, they did the whole transgender Black man thing. So in your mind, you see the media portraying Black people this way, and then you say it hits our community harder, but to you, it's just all a coinkydink? Because remember in the beginning, she doesn't believe that this can be influenced.
A lot of conservatives will deny and say, well, gender affirmation care does not make them happier. And in many cases, that is true. But there are the cases like yourselves where the gender affirmation care does make them happier.
True happiness is from within. If you're looking for outside affirmations, then you'll never be truly happy. And if it is making you truly happy, then you need to figure out what's wrong with you. And I really think I could use a Tylenol now. So that's the end of the trans versus conservative women discussion. This is a deep conversation and an important one. Again, I don't like diving into this stuff too much because I like to laugh and I like to joke and I like to be your escape from this. But I also hope you enjoyed this too, because I still hope I made you laugh. I still hope I entertained you a little bit. I probably didn't make you laugh as much. But that's okay, because this video wasn't really meant to be funny, even though they act funny. And if you enjoyed this video at all, don't be stingy, share it. And as I like to say, if I made you laugh at all, if I entertained you at all today with this video, then I need you to hit that bell like the hunchback. Also click that hitchhiker button and subscribe with me. And I'll see you on the next trip.
Day and night. Keep it real. Keep it real. Keep it real. All my life. Keep it real. Keep it real. Keep it real. keep it real. That's why I keep it real, keep it real, keep it real.